Hey guys, welcome back to another video at Jensen's Reptiles. Today we're going to be talking about scale rot. So recently we've had some hideously warm weather here in the UK, and with hot, humid weather comes all sorts of booms and bacteria. So one of my snakes went into the early stages of a bacterial scale infection or scale rot, and these were the things that we did at home to help her recover. So she's doing a lot better now, and I'll show you, after I showed you what you're going to need, how she's doing at the moment. So, first things first, what you want is some F10 hand gel. So this keeps your hands nice and clean whilst you're holding your animal. The last thing you want to do is add more bacteria to an infected site. Next thing you're going to want to do is get a good first aid spray. This one from Renasan is proven to kill 99.9999% of harmful organisms. It's great for all mammals and reptiles, so definitely a good thing to have on hand. If you don't want to use something like Renasan, then what you can use is some Tamidine. This is great to use topically, or you can add it to some water and dilute it and use it as a bath. Now, if you are using it as a soak or as a bath, make sure you see how your animal reacts to that the first time round. If they're reacting with a lot of stress, stick to a topical application, which I'm going to show you how to do in just a moment. If you are going down the Tamidine route, what you need is a little water spray. You don't need to have it in a spray format, but it's a bit more useful this way. And of course you're going to need a little dish and some cotton buds as well. So after you've applied your Tamidine or your first aid spray, you're going to want to use some of this F10 germicidal barrier ointment or something similar that's made for reptiles or small animals. What this does is help prevent reinfection. So at the point where the infection is, it's sitting under the scale. So obviously we're manoeuvring the scale around, we're getting the Tamidine or the Renasan or whatever in there. It's highly likely that when you put your snake back in their enclosure or you're handling them, any bacteria from your hand's going to get back into that wound. So obviously we keep our hands nice and clean, but also putting a barrier ointment on there as well means that the infection site is going to be super clean, and hopefully we can get the animal in great health in no time at all. So what I'm going to show you how to do today is use the Tamidine approach to show you how we've been using this and how it's helped Haku. So I wish I'd started filming this a couple of days ago when we first noticed Haku had had a problem, because you would have seen how drastic the improvement has been. She's a white snake, so it was really easy to see it. On a darker snake, you want to be using a flashlight every day and making sure you run your hands up and down their body to make sure that there's nothing there. With Haku, super easy to see. She's bright white and she had red patches on her, so straight away we could see something wasn't right. And luckily we knew what to do in this kind of situation and just had to confirm that it was actually a bacterial infection. Over the course of the last 3-4 days, she's shown drastic improvement. Obviously, with her being a white snake, you can still see the issue, which is why I'm going to show you today, and hopefully it'll help with anyone that's wondering, you know, if their snake has the same problem, and kind of show you how to deal with it. If you aren't sure what's wrong with your animal, please take them to the vet. This video is in no way advising you not to take your animal to the vet if there's something wrong. A good exotics vet is always the best course of action, but I'm going to show you what to do, most likely for the follow-up care from the vet. They'll most likely tell you the same thing. So let me show you that now, and you can see how Haku's doing. Okay, so Haku doesn't like to sit still for very long, but I'm going to try to show you the best I can. So these little patches here are what we're looking at. At a glance, when I spotted her the other day, these were all really red all the way around. The scales were lifted, and I actually thought she had mites that had been biting her. So I went into a panic straight away and thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to soak her quickly just to make sure we kill any mites that are kind of not burrowed deeply under. And I was just trying to have a look for anything on her. When I pulled her out of her enclosure, actually there were no mites, and I could see something a little yellow and crusty under the scales, which straight away to me is, you know, a skin issue, bacterial infection. So with the most common bacterial infection for snakes being scale rot, that's the path I went down for treatment. You can see on Haku at the moment that she's a little bit red and dented. That's actually not the issue here. That's because she's been sleeping under a piece of bark. Those will fade away in a few moments, but it's these darker brownish patches that we're looking at. So she's got a few on the sides here. I'm just going to lift her around so we can take a look. She's not going to enjoy me doing this because she knows what's coming. But you can see them here. And then, oh, it's okay, baby, you're alright. And then she's got some over on the sides here. That darker patch there is actually a dark scale, so don't worry about that one. So mostly it's actually getting a hell of a lot better, but obviously this is something that you need to treat for a couple of weeks to make sure that any remnants of the infection are gone. It's not something that you want to treat until visually it's doing okay. You want it to be completely and utterly gone. So what I'm going to do is just let Haku sit out for a moment to get rid of all these dent marks so I can actually see a bit better what I'm working with. With her being a white snake, all of these marks show up really easily. Anyone that has a leucistic snake will know if they sleep under a piece of cork, suddenly they look like they've been ravaged by a fox or something. Whereas in reality, after a few minutes of being out, she looks absolutely gorgeous. So by the way, I've used that F10, this one, on my hands already. So my hands are nice and clean. I definitely wouldn't want to be handling an animal that had any kind of skin issue if my hands were dirty. This table's also been disinfected, and that's a really clean towel that's on there now. So I'm going to let Haku sit out just for a moment, and then we'll get started. Okay, it's been about 30 seconds because Haku is not wanting to sit still. So I'm going to show you guys straight away how to get started. So when you're working with the Tamidine, you want it to spread a little bit easier because it's so thick. So what you want to do is get your water spray. Now you don't want this to be cold or hot water, you want it to be room temperature. And you're just going to spritz your snake. Okay, and you just go around, wipe it over. Try not to spray it in their face because it's a little bit daunting, so just cover the face while you're doing that. Haku's actually going to cover her own face for me, which is great. Then you're going to take your Tamidine in a little pot like this with your cotton buds soaking. That way the cotton's going to be nice and absorbent. It's going to take all of that Tamidine in. Haku's going to knock my camera over. Then at the spots where you have the infection site, you just push it in. So this is the part the snake won't enjoy too much, because you're actually going to apply a little bit of pressure in a circular motion and just push it under the scale. This is a lot easier to do when you're actually holding your snake, so I'm just going to show you a couple of the sites and then I'm going to pick her up and do it that way instead. Because what you want to do is let them bend, and then you're going to push the liquid under the scale. Okay. Because Haku is so energetic, I'm going to pick her up now. And I'm going to get the rest of it applied, and then I'll show you what to do next. Okay, so after you've applied it to your snake, you're actually going to let them sit and let it absorb for about 10-15 minutes. In that time, that Tamidine is going to soak into the issues with the scales. It's going to get right in every little nook, and it's going to start to do its job. Now with a snake like Haku, she's going to want to keep moving. As you can see, there's some Tamidine on my hands as well, and that's okay. I'm just going to keep moving her back, keeping her on this towel until it's time to wash the Tamidine off. Now that may sound really funny that you're going to put it on for 10 minutes and then wash it off again. In that time it's actually absorbed into the skin a little bit, and especially in all of these creases where the issues are. So then we're just going to take it off the skin and we'll put that germicidal barrier on. So I'm going to keep her occupied for a little while, and then I'll show you how that works. Okay, so Haku is all cleaned up, dried off, and now's the time to put on the germicidal barrier, which is this F10 stuff here that I showed before. So this comes like a wax. So I'm just going to juggle Haku while I show you this. So you can see it's like a hair wax or something like that, or like a thick face cream. So with clean hands, you want to just take a bit, and you want to, again, in a circular motion, just rub it on the affected area, like that. Okay? That will create a barrier on the skin to stop any reinfection. So Haku's not going to keep having the same skin infection get worse and worse. It should just keep getting better, as it's doing at the moment. So, I'm going to finish her up. As you can see, she's quite a handful. And I'm going to get her all sorted back in her enclosure, and then I'll talk a little bit more about why these things happen and how to prevent them. Okay guys, so Haku is back in her enclosure and she's all fixed up. While I keep these products here so you can have a look at them and maybe make a note of anything that you may need to buy, I'm just going to talk you through why scale rot happens. So it can be down to a few different reasons, and it's always best to keep on top of these things. So reason number one is increased bacteria. Now that can be because the enclosure is dirty. It can purely be down to bad husbandry, in that the enclosure is not being cleaned often enough. It can be that the snake is actually lying in their own filth, because that's what snakes do sometimes. One of my royal pythons, Pixel, he poops and then he sits in it. And we have to physically lift him up and clean him. Because otherwise this sort of thing would happen to him really frequently, where he would get an infection, because all of this bacteria going under his scales, it's not the best. So it's knowing your animal's behavior. If that's something that they do, then you're going to have to clean your animal a little bit more. Using the F10 products is great, because they make wipes as well, which are great for washing your animals down if they're not keen on a bath. A lot of snakes are not keen on a bath at all, so it's not always worth stressing them out for it. Another reason for increase in bacteria leading to scale rot is increased humidity. So with Haku, what we'd noticed was there was a spike in humidity in general with this hot weather. It's been up in the 30s, 30 degrees Celsius and over for the last week or so. Before that it was in the high 20s, so for England, pretty hot. And for London in particular, it gets hot and it gets humid. So we had humidity up in the higher 70s for about a week, which is a lot higher than it usually is. Our house usually sits around the 50 mark, and to have it up in the 70s was pretty high. So with that, obviously we needed to change our routine, but that actually wasn't something that I'd thought to do. So we were still spraying down enclosures as normal, and what we didn't realise was the hygrometers were reading an inaccurate point of the tank. So where Haku had been sitting was actually a fair bit higher in humidity, definitely a boom in bacteria, and then straight away a skin infection. And luckily with Haku it's super easy to spot. Same as when we had an issue with snake mites. She was the first to get them, and I'm almost grateful that she was. I feel awful saying it, but being able to see 2 snake mites on a snake is, you know, really lucky. Snakes with more natural colouring, it's a lot harder to see. And it's the same with any kind of skin problem. So for Haku to get it, it was a bit of a sigh of relief, because we could catch it on day 1. In the evening I'd gone to bed and she was absolutely fine, still bright white, absolutely normal. And then the next day she had all these red patches, and you know, that was her trying to fight off an infection. So we did what I just showed you. She's also had a couple soaks, because Haku's absolutely fine with having a soak. And we've F10 nebulized her entire enclosure to make sure it's really clean while she's in there. I don't want you guys to kind of see this and say, right, I'm never going to go and do a natural enclosure because I'm worried about this. Actually, what you just need to do is be really clean. Keep an eye on your animals when the weather's really hot and humid. Maybe try lower their humidity with some fans, something like that, which is definitely something we're going to look into going forward, because I'm sure this is probably going to happen every summer going forward now. So there are definitely a few things that you can do to avoid this happening. 1, being super clean. 2, keeping an eye on humidity. So for us it would be the latter. There was an issue with humidity, and you know, there's bacteria present everywhere. So when it has a boom and when it can breed, then off it goes. And there was some, you know, rogue fecal matter in her enclosure, I'm sure, and that would have been a great feeding ground. So it's just both hand in hand. Keep an eye on your husbandry, keep an eye on your ambience, and you should be fine. I wanted to share this with you guys because I found it incredibly difficult to find anything online that shows how to treat scale rot at home in a preventative manner as well. This is actually kind of vet recommended treatment, and this is usually what your vet will tell you to do after you've taken your animal to them with this kind of thing. If it's further along, then it's a different matter. Luckily in these early stages, Haku's has improved by about 80% already, so over the next week I would expect it to clear up completely, and I'll keep you guys up to date on how she goes as well. But yeah, so I just wanted to share all of that information with you. If you've got any questions about this, is there anything you need to know, drop everything in the comments below. It's the best way of getting hold of me, and I'll reply to you as soon as possible. I hope you guys are having an awesome day. I'm sorry for the lack of videos lately. It's just been too hot to think. But we're going to be getting back on track and uploading more frequently. I know I say that every time, but there are definitely plans for a lot of videos. So yeah, I hope you're all having a great day, whatever day it is that you watch this, and I will catch up with you guys soon. Cheers.